So we're going to launch the planning board meeting for the evening, and thank you for those who are attending. I have a phone number attending, 607-539, et cetera, et cetera. If you could rename yourself so we have some idea of who you are, we would appreciate that. Give you a minute to do that. And so I'm going to open things up for privilege of the floor, if there is any of that this evening. And I guess there's a way to raise your hand electronically. Charles, you're going to...
No, I was just saying, raise your hand. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, I see. Okay, and again, person on the phone, if you can rename yourself, if you don't know how to do it. Charles, do you have advice for them? I think they just hover over their name and click over there and click on more or something. How would they show us?
If they're on a phone, they're not going to have that.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. That's only if you're calling in and using the audio, because you don't have a great connection on the computer.
All right. So
it's a 539 number, which makes me think it's a Brookton landline.
Yeah, it's a Brookendale person, right? So, or a very, very clever foreign interloper masquerading as a local. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so it looks like both Lizzie and Don would like to address us. So I will first unmute, or at least put an unmute request in for Lizzie. And when you have, okay, Lizzie, I think you're ready to go.
Okay, so I've come to request that the planning committee take on a project that some of us who were opposed to the erection of a cell phone tower on Bald Hill Road proposed last spring at the public hearing, namely to work out a plan that would give the town of Caroline adequate cell phone coverage for all our residents. The idea was that the town should figure out locations for the future cell towers that will no doubt be needed, based on the topography of Caroline, while taking into consideration the need to locate those towers as far as possible from people's homes. If this were done, it might be possible to avoid what happened with the cell phone tower on Bald Hill Road, which is now a very unwelcome neighbor on our beautiful hilltop. I'm stirred to come to you with this request because we have endured a series of very unpleasant experiences over the last several weeks, during which AT&T's contractor has been clearing the land and erecting a 190-foot tall cell phone tower located just 200 feet from our property line. The way this came to pass was very disturbing from the very start, back in March of 2019. A huge corporation, AT&T, enabled by the federal law that declares a cell phone tower to be a public utility, decided they needed to locate a tower on Bald Hill. In a kind of fishing expedition, they sent out letters to all of the landowners asking if they were interested in receiving what seems to be quite a tidy monthly payment to have a tower installed on their land. All but one household responded no. One couple whose land abuts our property said yes, and they subsequently signed a contract. They never had the decency to even ask how their neighbors might feel about it. Although our property is the closest to the site of the tower, we were not the only neighbors to be upset about their decision. Several of us attended review board meetings and the public hearing on the matter to see if there were a way to locate it farther up the hill on Cornell or state forest land, or at least in a location on the neighbor's property farther away from the neighboring homes. Over a month ago, our peaceful hilltop was invaded by a crew with huge machines, and we suffered through days, nay, weeks of deafening racket while they felled huge trees, ran tree limbs through chippers, dug into the rocky slope of the site in order to make it level, hauled and spread gravel over the area, etc. The sounds of this violence to the natural environment of our hilltop were practically unbearable. We now have a tower looming menacingly above the treetops behind our house, some 800 feet from it, and the house of our daughter and her family. Our neighbors across the road are somewhat farther from it, but when the leaves fall, they will have it right in the middle of the view from their living room window. They and we dread to learn what this may do to our property values. And it's a concern for us because we are hoping to pass our land on to our children. But this is not the worst outcome of our neighbors' unneighborly action. Just as disturbing is what their decision has done to the previously harmonious community of people living on Bald Hill. We are now a community rent apart by this. I tell you this because I fervently hope that there could be a way to avoid this kind of thing happening in other parts of the town. Please do what you can to seek the kind of advice that would allow the town to have a say based on thoughtful consideration of what is best for the town and its residents in where future cell phone towers will be located. And I recognize that there are all kinds of, there are legal avenues for you to follow. You're the ones who are in a position to decide how to do that. But I'm just simply asking you to take this approach into consideration. Thanks for letting me speak.
Well, Lizzie, you are very welcome, and we appreciate your thoughts and comments both before and now. And yes, heart goes out to you because I know that that's been a rather troublesome event going on next to your property. Obviously we have been quite busy with the comp plan, but and other members of the planning board, please chime in. The recommendation for developing telecommunications plan is in the comp plan and is very high on our agenda as soon as the comp plan is off our desk, which is imminent at this point. So we do hear you and agree with the urgent need to figure out a way to satisfy simultaneously the strong desire for good communications in the town, which has been repeatedly expressed by many residents, along with protecting, though, the values of the town, the peace and quiet, the rural character, etc., and figuring out a good plan to give us the communication without disturbing residents, I think is a very good goal. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I dealt with that in the livability section, and it may be, I don't think it's actually specifically called out anywhere else in the revision of the comprehensive plan, but there's basically an entire paragraph added to the communications section that deals with the challenges of siting cell tower sites to provide service, but also to not impact the needs of residents, or at least that the needs of residents have weight when figuring out those siting goals. And then in the actions, develop a town strategy for cell tower siting is one of the 7 or so actions at the end of the livability section. So, it definitely, there's a spot in this comprehensive plan that didn't exist prior in the initial comprehensive plan to hopefully share almost exactly what you communicated, which is people do need cell phone service and people are excited to get cell phone service, but the process right now is one that could really be improved with a more strategic footing for town residents to be a part of that process. So thanks for sharing your thoughts. I just saw it for the first time when I rode my bike up Bald Hill too, just a few days ago, because we were in quarantine for a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, that's where it's going. But I'm one of the people, at least down here in Brooktondale, that doesn't get any cell phone service at all. So I don't know if this will improve my cell phone service or not. But I definitely hear you, and thanks for sharing.
Anybody else have anything else they want to say at this point? Okay,
I think something that we definitely have to be looking into. I mean, we were at the time of this. There was also the concern about energy sources, things like solar farms and wind farms and things like that, and that was brought up even in the briefly in the original plan. But it's still a part of the whole thing because technically it does connect to a lot of the so-called the rural living aspect of the thing too, and the notion of beautification, which seemed to have been its own section, and they even wanted a committee at one point was established to look at that. It didn't seem to have gotten off the ground very far though.
Okay. Okay, you're gonna recognize Don then.
You might have to unmute
Yeah,
him. I'm not sure.
I did click on that. Doesn't mean it did anything. I will give it a minute to see if he received the request. I tried to click unmute. Either I missed or it's not doing its thing. Let me try it again. Yeah, okay, it flickered. I think it should have sent him a message.
All right. Can you hear me
Good.
now?
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yes, you should be able to hear me now, right?
Yep.
All
So
right.
Don, is
Hi,
that,
everyone.
all right, the 539
So,
is you.
It is me, but my DSL doesn't handle audio and video very well, and the only audio I can pick up is you, and oftentimes you all freeze on me as well. So the phone allows me to continue my communication. So having said that, Bill and I have been talking about public hearings on the comprehensive plan, and he shared with me the town law that tells that planning boards are required to have a public hearing. And in that, reading the law, it looks like the reason for the public hearing is to make sure that the public is guaranteed a voice in the process. And actually, it talks about a second public hearing being held by the town board for exactly the same reason. But the comprehensive plan is adopted by a resolution, so that the language that the public sees in the comprehensive plan can be adjusted at any time after a public hearing. It's not like a local law. It has to stay intact all the way through. So the reason why I'm addressing the planning board is I've been around when the planning boards have actually had public hearings in the past, and it hasn't gone all that well. And the reason, so I think knowing that you have to have one, I have a suggestion for the planning board. And that is that the language that you use when you're talking to the public is that you are the messenger. So you've been out gathering information and putting it together, and this is what you've heard from the public, and this is what you're sharing with them. So you as a planning board are not taking ownership. You're just reporting back, and you're looking for more feedback, so then you can turn this over to the town board. And maybe I'll also suggest you might want to have one public meeting ahead of the public hearing, and that would be an opportunity to talk about the process that you've used in developing it, so that it's very clear. You don't need to take public hearing time up to talk about it, but you talk about the different public information sessions, the way you've received feedback, how you've been communicating, and that you're always looking for feedback, and this is how you can get access to the document and send you feedback. So I know that you've been talking about how you want to interact with the public, and I'm just sharing those comments with you since you're thinking about it tonight. And I think that's all I have, but I'll be glad to take any questions.
Okay, anybody want to ask Don a question? Okay, well, Don, and thanks for your thoughts. Indeed, because you and I have discussed about this a few different times over the years, so I do appreciate your thoughts now too, and we will keep that under advisement. Thank you. So, I think that means I guess I probably should mute Don if he's done. So we'll do that.
I did that.
Okay. Oh, I probably just undid it then. I don't know.
No, it still shows muted. It's good.
Okay. Okay. Well, the phone number shows unmuted, and I'm going to try to remute the phone number, but it keeps not doing it. Yeah. Catherine, you're muted, so I can't hear you. I'm confused.
So it says that you're not allowed.
I've lost Catherine. Is it my problem?
That's,
No, I think I did too.
Okay,
if
Catherine, say
I
it
try
again.
to mute and unmute myself, it says the whole.
Okay, I just
So
made.
what I wanted to do was unmute myself so I could tell you that I'm
See,
going to cut my video so that
Okay.
I can participate because the connection is very bad. But muting and unmuting every time I do that, there's a message that says the host is not allowing that. So I want you to be aware.
Okay.
Because I'm
All right.
mute myself now, but if I try to unmute, it's going to tell me that I can't do that.
Okay, I just made you co-host, which I forgot to do. So try it now and see if that fixes that problem.
Yep.
Okay, because it works for, because the others can do it. Because Catherine, can you? Oh, you
Yeah,
thumbs
she
up. Okay,
gave the
sorry.
thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm not used to these visual cues. I am so sorry. Okay, great, awesome. We're good to go then. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the resolution that Catherine has offered regarding formula business restrictions, urging the town board to develop some of those. You know, we run a pretty loose and informal ship here. But since it is a resolution, I will at least, I guess, lean on Robert's rules a bit. We'll try to do the, you know, someone has to move the resolution and someone's going to second that. And then we'll go into debate, but debate will be kind of loose and friendly like we always do at discussion. I'm going to assume that Catherine moves her resolution. So do I hear a second? Well, I will certainly second it so we can talk about it. So, okay, so the resolution is now on the table for discussion. And Catherine, I think probably you should kick things off.
Sure, if you'd like. I mean, I think I've certainly said a lot, and certainly in putting forward the language, if you'd like me to emphasize it again, I will, but I guess I would hope to hear from others, given that this is not a personal agenda, this is not my resolution, and, you know, I have already put it forward. So I would welcome hearing other people's thoughts on it.
I'd be happy to take a first stab with my thoughts, because I think and this is where you can correct my impression too, Catherine, but I think, you know, what we hear in the resolution is a little bit of the fact, like when I read between the lines, is there's a limited amount of time before the moratorium runs out, and given that, and given the nature of the ton of feedback we got from the community when the potential of commercial development started to be discussed, you know, what are some pathways that might be efficient for the town to work on that might also complement any other future strategies as well. So, you know, in my mind, this is one tool, right? And I think that the one thing I'm just not, I haven't, you know, necessarily become an expert in the intervening weeks between when this was first brought up, but I do, I would say that I don't necessarily know, like, this is one tool. I don't know necessarily if it's the most efficient tool to like actionable tool. And so the part about it being like to develop a formula business restriction, it seems narrow to me, only because I know there's a bunch of other tools, and some of them are much bigger and broader. Let's say zoning, right? Like the town's not gonna develop a zoning policy in half a year. But I don't know if there are other things like this that could also provide that interim guidance for development that reflects all the feedback that we've gotten about development, commercial development, and the idea that, gosh, it probably might be in the town's best interest and its residents' best interest to think about ways to guide that development. So that's my only hesitation in necessarily saying I'm all for this, because I think I'm all for complementary, efficient, like agile, sort of nimble ways for our government to move forward on addressing the concerns from the community. And I just don't know that I'm in a position to say, yes, this is the way we should do it. And so I guess I would just want to get some feedback from others before, you know, saying, yes, we should urge them to do this one thing. Because it just might be that I don't know, there might be a better thing. And this sounds like a good thing. So that's sort of where I sort of ended. it makes sense. I just don't know if it makes the most sense, or if there is a potential for it to get in the way of some other work that the town board might already be working on. If we urge them to do one thing and they're in the middle of another thing, do they listen to us? That kind of a interaction. So those are my 2 cents. That's why I went first.
I can
Get 'em
address
all out
that
there.
one concern, actually. Yeah, I mean, I can address that one concern, which is this is a particular initiative that does not interfere with anything that may occur in the future, because it's something that could be a standalone, or it could be, complementary to any other thing. So, this is something that, for example, could have been proposed 3 years ago, independent of any imminent threat, right? I mean, it's just something that is one, as you said, tool. So I guess I would look at it that way. It certainly is not quick. Like, none of these things are going to be quick. So I don't think it's this case to say, oh, well, zoning is going to take a long time, but this we could get hammered out in 3 months, and so we should do that. That's not at all what, at least for me, was behind kind of selecting this particular urging. I think what was behind this particular urging is that it actually is, to me, it's the most consistent with vision and mission, and least kind of potentially offensive to any one particular group, right? Because you're not saying, I don't want this business to come in. You're saying, if at the end of the day, with everything we have in place or don't have in place, something comes in, it actually at least needs to look and feel and be and behave according to our guidance. That's at least the way I see it.
And Mark had raised his hand, so I think you have something you want to say, Mark?
Actually, well, I raised my hand just to get unmuted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And so I guess I do want to share my thoughts, but maybe I'll do that after the planning board has discussed this. Would that be good? I mean,
Sure, that's fine.
okay, good, thank you.
So I do have, I mean, I like the idea of formula business restrictions a lot. But like Charles, I feel like I don't necessarily know enough to say this is the thing I want to necessarily do right now, though I think that is likely a great idea. But I have several concerns about sort of the resolution, the way it's set up, and potential issues it might set up for the town board. As Tim wrote, on one level, it's sort of, we're already giving advice in the comprehensive plan. So to elevate this one thing out of it now, to some sense, sort of is short-circuiting what the normal process would be. I think that's not a huge deal, but I'm not super thrilled about it. But the main concern I have is, particularly with some of the language in there now referring to the moratorium, is the possibility of opening the gate for an Article 78 proceeding, which would overturn the moratorium. And I'm not saying that will happen, but I want to get to the same place this resolution goes to, but I have some amendments to offer that I hope will get us there in a way that's sort of more, less likely to get us in trouble. And so I don't know the order in which to do that, but I've got a couple concerns about a couple of the whereas clauses. A couple of whereas clauses I would like to add, and I would change somewhat the resolved part. And in particular, I guess my suggestion, and I know this may not, and most of what I would suggest is going to be sort of friendly amendments, but I think broadening it in terms of the tools looked at would be a good idea, mainly because it helps blunt a Article 78 proceeding to overturn the moratorium, because it makes it less specific about a formula business, and a formula business is the current business pending in front of the town. So that's a thumbnail sketch of where I'm going. I don't want to take a ton of time, but the questions I have for you, Catherine, in the third whereas clause, which reads, whereas future land use guidance and legislation will not address current threats to the town's vision, values, and goals. What, I don't fully get that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I mean that by the time future things occur, current threats will already be over.
Okay, so I'm
And
taking
also,
that.
I want to reiterate, this is not my personal agenda. This is not like, I don't think we need to be addressing questions about the content to me. I have put this forward as a member of the planning board with the intent and hope that we as a planning board, given that we are an advisory team to the town board, will together in a unified way decide that we are at a really important moment here and we must do something about it. And given that the planning board is not a legislative, regulatory, body, our only job is to advise the planning board, advise the town board, right? And I am just simply suggesting that we do that, because the comprehensive plan, as lovely as it is and as hard as we have worked on it, is not sufficient to do what needs to be done in this town. And I feel pretty strongly about that.
Okay, well, let me just, great. I actually agree with all of that. And indeed, I think, we are an advisory body. When we developed the comprehensive plan, we were particularly tied to reflecting public opinion. But outside of that, it is our role to think proactively ahead of time, use our own intelligence judgment to come up with things for the town board to think about and work on. So I distinguish our role as the planning board a little bit differently from our role on the comprehensive plan, where I feel much more strongly that we really should hew pretty closely to what the public opinion has asked us to do. But I think in this case, both those are in concert, because we have heard lots of concern over unregulated development. So here's my suggestions. I'll throw it out there. I would strike the third whereas clause because, and the fifth whereas clause, both of those essentially are referring to the fact that there is imminent development in the town. There's one such project. I consider that to be red meat to a lawyer on the other side who would like to overturn the moratorium. And I see no particular reason they would have to be in there to motivate this. And instead, I have a couple that I would substitute. And I do have them up.
Now I lost you.
Yeah, it looks like you just froze up, Bill. I don't know if you can hear or see us.
Up, and we can try a screen share. I can hear and see you. Can you guys? It says my internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me at all? Yes. Am I
Now
back?
we can.
Now I can.
Yeah. Every once in a while, my internet goes out. It's lovely.
You just sounded like Kramer on the episode of Seinfeld where he has too many cappuccinos.
Okay. Well, that has happened too, perhaps. All right. So I don't know
You're
what I was.
bursting.
Okay. Obviously, whereas are short, I can just try reading it and see what you guys think. I can pop it up. I do have Word documents here somewhere with it in. But my suggestion is to add a whereas clause that says, whereas through its work on a revised comprehensive plan for the town, the planning board has identified a number of important tools for guiding future land use that the town may wish to implement. Chief among them, formula business restrictions, economic impact review laws, and zoning. So this acts to broaden the focus of this, and that we'll get to that in a little bit. And the other whereas clause is, and we can go back and treat each one individually and we can strike or whatever, whereas learning and researching about such tools now is prudent because such background work will minimize and perhaps avoid the need for future moratoria or other delays in recommencing review of projects in the event the town decides to pursue such land use guidance. So I'm motivating, it is, yeah, let's get to work on it right now. And the reason is what we don't want to do is suddenly have to say, oh my God, we need another 12 or 18-month moratorium in order to develop these guidelines. That's sort of unfair, I think, to everybody involved. And so it makes sense to get going on things now, but it doesn't say we're doing that because there's this project in front of the town, because that's not true. And my resolved clause is also broader than just form of business restrictions. It says, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board hereby urges the town board to immediately create a committee or some other mechanism deemed appropriate by the town board with the express purpose of looking into formula business restrictions, economic impact review laws, zoning, and other tools of land use guidance. And I guess what I would say about that is that it's certainly up to that group. The original one says develop such, and develop could mean develop and implement. It might just mean what I'm saying, which is learn about it, because this sort of treats Charles and my reservation that I think it's a really good idea. I'd love to know more about it before saying to town you should really have this. And so this does that, but means that this committee could be looking into it, figuring out what makes sense to Caroline, find model laws, all the stuff that would have to happen later, and just do it now. So that's my suggestion of sort of steering clear of any possible Article 78 proceeding, making this focused on form of businesses. So that's my suggestion.
Go ahead, Val. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, I agree with what Charles was saying, mostly in that I guess it was also part of Tim's concern over this thing, is that if we rush into something that deals with a kind of specific case of a whole series of cases that we're really concerned about, and that we actually are really a fundamental part of the plan, then we might miss the opportunity to develop a mechanism that can be much more powerful in its reach and its effectiveness. I mean, often things like formula businesses are grouped legally at the state level with things like big box stores, franchise architecture, and then the notion of the sort of that kind of business, the formula businesses. So they're typically all related, and I think that we do have that. We have language in the plan that indicates that we need something there. That's why. So I would reinforce Bill's alternatives to this thing, and I think it is very important that the town board begin their process of looking into these things. I don't know if they need us to say it specifically, though.
I wish it was not necessary.
Well, I think that the whole plan says it in a way. I mean, that's kind of our point. And that, the plan is, the comprehensive plan itself should be the tool that could enable all of these kinds of investigations and developments, I think.
Well, and, to that point, the kinds of clauses that Bill suggested, personally, I like the idea of broadening it, but they actually tie they hew really closely to what we've written in the comprehensive plan. And, by tying those two things together, it becomes clear that this is part of the process that we're trying to push forward now, but which is part of the plan regardless, and that might be a decent middle way that starts to accomplish quicker or a more responsive approach from the town board, while also very clearly advocating for what's in the plan without kind of like pulling out one single element from the plan. And that makes it seem also, I think, more just like complementary to the plan. Like we realize like this plan is moving forward. We have all this language in it reflecting what the town has been telling us, the town's residents have been telling us about how they feel about all of these things that relate to development on one side and one way or another. So we realize that there's no time like now to start addressing that, regardless of whenever the plan gets, ratified or resolved or whatever the word is, voted on by the board. That trying to prompt that process to start now. You know, there could be even a whereas that states, whereas, you know, in the final stages of completing the town's, you know, revision to the comprehensive plan, you know, it became clear that, you know, development is, you know, one of the single biggest challenges facing all facets of Caroline's future, or something like that. You know, we could have a clause like that in there that then leads to that next clause that says, you know, sort of to Bill's point of having a few other tools in there and then resolving. I like the resolution at the end to sort of putting that town plan basically both at the top and the bottom, because it's at the bottom right now of that resolution. And I think we could lead with that, and it would also make our presence, even having a resolution to deal with one single element from the plan. If we set that up in a way that's clear, it's not actually a single element. This element is woven throughout every section of, you know, it is the defining, unifying theme across, you know, all of the sections of the plan. And that's what we're reflecting back to the community from what we've heard. But that might also make it a little bit stronger, and to Bill's point, you know, eliminate any sort of unreasonability for the current state of the moratorium, et cetera.
I guess the things I would want to certainly add is that, you know, the part of the reason for a committee is that, I'm not sure what the town board, I mean, they have limited time and resources as well, and they're about to get the comp plan put in their lap, and then they're in budget season. So just asking the town board to do something, of course, leaves open the possibility of them designate some other group to do it. But I also think it's probably good to start involving more of the public and residents at this point. Let's tap energy and resources out there. So that was kind of the reason for that. But again, it leaves open other mechanisms, because they can do whatever, you know, they can think of a better way to do it. That's great. But were there such a committee, they are free to pick the order in which they consider things. Because obviously, yes, taking on zoning is a huge thing. That might not be the first thing they want to start, you know, really cutting their teeth on. Because, you know, I think we all understand that there's a certain amount of time pressure. I'd say it's only fair to everyone that this all get worked out as soon as possible. So, you know, the committee would obviously be able to choose its priorities as to what to work on first.
So would one way to approach this be we should make those edits and then vote on this next time around when we have a chance to read that, maybe have a shared document where we can see those edits, and in reflection of all the thoughts we've shared tonight. I'm just thinking, because I have to get off this call at 7, which I had mentioned in the mail. So I just want to be sure that I understand what the next step is for this. Or are we proposing to make some of these changes now and sort of workshop it now?
Maybe, Mark, do you want to chime in here? Can you? Let's see, you're on twice somehow. Yeah, can you talk now, Mark, or not? Because you're in here twice somehow. I see you twice at least. I'm gonna unmute. I sent at least one unmute request. Okay, Mark, you want to try speaking? All right, can you hear me, Mark? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, but we can't. Yeah, I don't know how you got in here twice. And I did try to send you an unmute. I am not sure what's. All right, let me see if there's a way that I can. All right, I'm assuming competent. Any other co-host know a way to get Mark?
No, I'm not saying anything either.
Me now?
There we go. Now we got you.
Okay.
I just kept clicking the button over and over and over and over and over again, and now it worked.
It was on my end. So anyway, it's a little, I think I had, I'm getting an echo, I think. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can. It is a weird echo, but that's, yeah.
Oh, this is crazy. I'm gonna shut this. I'm getting weird feedback.
Okay, let's see what's, I'm assuming he's coming back.
You know,
So
yeah.
anyway, to your point, Charles, I was hoping we could do this next time is on the essence. One possibility is to say, we may be meeting again in a couple of weeks because we're so near the end of this comp plan. We haven't decided that part yet. I'm not
Yeah.
sure we're going to get through all the stuff we're looking at, particularly with you going.
Hello?
Hello,
Hey.
Mark? All right.
Hello? Okay. I actually had Zoom open in 2 different browser windows on the same computer. So
Okay.
That'll do it.
it was horrible. Okay. I can communicate and I can see you guys all now. How weird.
All right.
Anyway, should I chime in now with my
I
thoughts?
think so. Now, I still see you twice, so I'm going to try to remove the second instance of you and hope that that's going to, says you won't be able to, let's see.
That's good.
All right.
Just give him the boot. See
Yeah,
what
all
happens.
right. All right, go ahead. Mark, can you still talk?
Yeah.
Okay, why
Okay.
don't you go ahead?
Okay, great. So anyway, I think that was a Harley Davidson. I appreciate the resolution, and I've also, we heard a privilege of the floor last night from people commenting on or asking the board to the same kind of thing, to move forward with research into the kinds of options we might want to undertake upon the recommendation of the comprehensive plan. And I think that's good. I think I've been reflecting on that, and I think I actually think the discussion tonight sort of highlights something that has distracted me, and that is the focus in the resolution on formula business restrictions. I am recommending, and I've actually I'm planning to put a resolution for next week's board meeting to move ahead with appointing a committee that has been recommended to do this kind of thing. And I think sort of supporting some of the discussion tonight, well, in my drafting my resolution, I just took a lot of the language from the moratorium and used that in the draft that I sent you, Bill. I think a key thing about this is that the reason that we need to move swiftly is because, as you said, we're under moratorium that puts a stricture on business developments or any kind of plan review. And so, that creates a restriction and a tension. And I think we need to do our best to make use of the time that's identified in the moratorium, the 180-day moratorium. So I will, in addition to what, I'm going to add another paragraph that refers to that, because I think that's key. But I've simply said that resolve the town board in the resolved part. The town board hereby establishes a volunteer committee to immediately begin research into land use regulations, development guidance tools that the town may wish to consider to support the town's vision as expressed in the comprehensive plan. And so I would like, I endorse this kind of thing. And I think it's, I wanted to discuss with the planning board whether this would be a subcommittee of the planning board. I think that actually makes sense. I also think that we are all, or many of us, many of you, all of you are volunteers. And so I think I'm going to reach out to county planning to see what kind of support they could offer for helping us in this process of research into these kinds of measures that the town might wish to pursue as a recommendation from the vision. And then also we may want to consider contracting for the contractual services of a planner to help with it. So I think all of those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about. I think it's important to remember that the comprehensive plan is visionary. It doesn't have to articulate exactly what kinds of measures the town might pursue, as long as we know the result that the town wants. And so that's why I think it's better to keep it more general. And so, you know, in the research phase, we may find measures that are things we don't even know about that we would like to pursue. So I think it's clear that we went to great pains, thanks to the planning board, to identify, in justifying the moratorium, we identified language from your work that gave us good reason to believe that there was going to be a call for stronger land use regulations in the town. And so I think we are, I think that and it clearly justifies beginning to roll our sleeves up on this. So that's what I'm thinking at this point. And thank you.
Okay. And I guess what I would add then is that this resolution may be at the next business meeting in the event that it fails. There's nothing really to prevent us as the planning board from similarly deciding to look into this, in particular to ask for public volunteers to work on it. Because I know all of us are strapped for time. So I'm not saying each of us has to necessarily do this a lot, though I would love for some planning board members to be involved. But if we feel that the town board isn't moving with the alacrity we'd like, there's nothing to keep us from stepping into the breach, so to speak. So that's another thought I've had, that we could do this without the town board's action. Other thoughts?
I mean,
Well, we can always suggest. I mean, that's what we do.
when I was going to say, if the goal is to prompt the town board into action, you know, hearing Mark say that, and he's on the town board going to be proposing action, seems like having a resolution like this being talked about by us is part of a helpful process in prompting the town to action. So I have no problem. I mean, I don't think we want to sit and workshop it word by word tonight. And if we don't have a finished thing to vote on, right? Like we can't vote on it basically, or, you know, we can't all say, but I think that if we have a document that we feel really good about, which I think this is pretty close. I think the changes that Bill had mentioned sounded good to me. And I think that, again, I think spending a little time at the top to try and tie it in to the plan and development more broadly, I think both of those serve the outcome really well. That we would be in a position to make that suggestion if the town board didn't move forward with something that seemed materially very similar to what's being proposed, you know, at the point that all this is written down. So I don't think it would be a bad move to maybe, I don't know, stick it in a Google Doc or something, Bill, or a Word or Microsoft Word document, but with your additions. And then I'd be happy to hop on and try and write something at the top, or if somebody else wants to, just another whereas that pulls in the plan, like I was mentioning earlier. And then maybe we can, hopefully, if any of us have time over the next couple of weeks before we meet again, you know, we can get to a point where we feel good about the language and there'll be an outcome from the business meeting, et cetera, and put us in a position to act on it if needed.
Yeah.
But also we can still forward that onto the board and say, these are the kinds of things that we're thinking, you know, as you craft yours.
Yeah, I wanted to just underscore that, and I think what Mark was saying sounds as though the board is taking this seriously and is taking this on, and that seems like a good thing. And I just want to underscore, though, that actions that are taken now are based upon the language and the goals of the original comprehensive plan, before any kind of revisions or anything were taken, because the revised plan doesn't exist as an official document yet, right? Because it hasn't been voted on. It hasn't received any of the other sort of the public exposure that it has. So everything that happens right now has to be based upon the language of the existing one. And I'm convinced that it is. I think that the previous comprehensive plan, the one from 2006, already has language in it that clearly indicates that some of these things, that for environmental reasons, for visibility, for character, all these various kinds of things, that they shouldn't, things like that shouldn't be happening. And also in the identification of the ideal lands for development versus the worst lands for development. So everything is there, and I think well, we shouldn't emphasize the revised plan yet as a point of departure for this, right? Because it's pretty much working off the original.
So I agree in general, but differ in a few of the specifics, which is the reason that the resolution might be useful. The reason I wrote it the way it did is that because we have learned some things in our work, and that's not available until the comp plan is out, which, as you say, is not out. So I agree, if the town tried to pass a law, it would have to sort of be grounded in the existing comp plan. But in terms of moving forward, I think it's totally appropriate for us to say, hey, we've come across these great ideas. So we think these are things you should be looking at. So I think that's okay to do. But I agree, in terms of actually passing something, it has to be based on whatever is the current comp plan.
Right.
Catherine, do you have something you want to say? I may have.
No, I just was saying it is grounded in all of the information and every existing comprehensive plan statement since 2006 and before. Like, this is not, I would really urge everyone to remember that this is nothing new. This is not about, anything that is new. This is just, it's just not, this is not new.
Right, agreed. So what I'm going to suggest is that this particular resolution be tabled to pending what happens at the town board business meeting. We can work on it in the meantime. And if it looks like it's necessary, take it up. Or otherwise, if we feel the town board needs extra advice on what this committee should be working on, we can craft something to do that. Is that an acceptable path forward for everybody? And Catherine,
That sounds great to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just make a just comment? I understand that the new plan, I'll call it, is going to reiterate many of the values and the visions of the 2006 plan. But just to be devil's advocate, if it weren't, that's why, if it is important that we anticipate that the new plan will be supporting many of these visions for the town. So I do think that's important. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think we all agree with that.
All right, I want to get one thing in quickly before Charles leaves. I don't know how promptly 7 o'clock is for you. First question is, I'm not sure what we're going to get through in terms of, again, there's a bunch of like minor revisions, and everybody say that's fine. So we're going to wind up at the end of this meeting either with a couple things we haven't talked about, or we've gotten through everything. What do we want a meeting soon to say, okay, here's the plan with all the revisions, that's fine, go? Or do we do that approval process simply online, that, I, again, collate the whole thing together with all the revisions we're doing today, send it out, and everyone says, okay, fine. Do we vote essentially electronically, or do we want to get together in a Zoom meeting for the final plan approval? Probably needs to be a meeting, but I don't know.
I'm fine with either, honestly, but I think the main thing is to have the time to review it ahead of time, so that's a bigger issue than whether or not I I send an okay over email, or whether we sit here and talk about it. So I'm game for either. My schedule's pretty open for the next 2 weeks. So
Yeah, I prefer doing it via documents. I mean, seeing the documents and being able to go over them,
Yeah.
because it also makes it a lot easier to have a kind of holistic approach where we try to avoid redundancies and we know exactly what is said in what context, because otherwise I spend even here so much time going back and forth between all the various kinds of documents trying to figure out exactly where I remember having seen something. So
Well, my goal will be after tonight's meeting to take everything that we decide tonight, because again, I did send everyone, I was supposed to be done 2 days ago, but I finally got done today, a compiled version of the entire plan. It's a PDF because that's the only way I have to insert the maps into one document. And you'll notice the maps don't have page numbers because I have to have someone go in and do that, and I don't want to do that yet. So I'm happy to do that same effort to, edit the things that need to be edited, compile it together again, send out the final version, hopefully just a week or two from now. And then we can decide whether we're, approving it via online vote or if we have to actually meet together.
So if we can get Word versions of the text parts at least.
I can get you Word versions of the text parts, absolutely. And we sort of had them. I mean, I sent those out first, and all I did was take those, and I had to make PDFs to put together. So we've already got those, but I can make sure that everyone gets a copy of the last version of everything after this meeting with whatever changes we do. And we'll get the Word versions and a compiled version. And I'll send that out.
Great.
And so then we'll see where we go from there. And Charles, do you have a couple more minutes? Or do you have to go
Sure.
right now? Okay.
looks like Mark has something.
I just want to speak about it before Charles leaves. So if you want to go
Yeah.
ahead, I'll just.
No, is it quick or is it?
I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you for, this is really momentous. And I think and I hope the board and everybody has so much gratitude and appreciation to this planning board and the previous one for this great work. And I did get it. I got the whole thing PDF today. That was really great. And I did get to read the first part, and the one thing I thought I just read really, really well. And the very concise statement on diversity in Caroline was beautiful. So thank you.
Great. Okay, just a real minor point of business. That's what I want you to hear, Charles. And I don't want to sound pissy, okay? But so Catherine, I think, made a very reasonable request of the town clerk to post the agenda for tonight's meeting, because for for the first time, our meeting actually appeared right on the home page of the planning of the town page, which is great. And I hadn't thought to ask her to put the agenda on. Usually we get that on the calendar. I think for clarity for the town office staff, I think it would be better if the requests went to me and then I communicated with them, rather than have several people on the committee trying to talk to them. And let me know if this is not how, I'm hoping to act only as a funnel and not a gatekeeper. So again, Catherine, when you asked her to do it, I just gave her the agenda and told her to do it. I'm not going to try to be a gatekeeper, but I think for clarity, it'd be better if that's the flow. But if you guys think that I'm being too much of a gatekeeper or causing other problems in terms of how I run the committee, I want to hear about that. So that's part of what this 5 minutes is for.
For clarity, I did not ask her to do anything. I asked her if she had the agenda, and that's why I CC'd you on the email to connect you guys to say, if it needs to go on, let's have it go on. Bill is CC'd. Enjoy.
Yeah. And they did have it. I mean, everyone had it because it went out on the town listserv. But of course, she didn't necessarily realize that she had it, I guess. But yes. But yeah, you're right.
I'm fine.
And thank you for seeing me.
And I'm fine just emailing you. I only have one email to remember, so that's good.
And Bill, you're talking about sending the postings and stuff to Velvet, right?
Well, that's what I do. But in this case, I think Catherine, because like the town board agenda was on the homepage of the town webpage.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that. Yeah.
Right. And I hadn't done that in the past. I hadn't thought of it. And what we had done a couple times, Velvet has put the agenda as part of the calendar announcement. If people hit the more details, they get to
Right.
see the agenda.
I
And I
see.
forgot to tell her to do it every time, so it's been not happening. So I think I
see.
have to remind her each time. But I think
Okay.
that what Catherine was asking for, and again, connecting me with the town clerk about, was getting the agenda posted on the homepage. I don't know if you're going to continue to post meetings on the homepage, but if so, I will try to. But
Yeah.
it was more of the general question of communication. And so I get Catherine's point that, hey, she CC'd me in order to connect us, which was great. And I
Yeah.
do, that was good.
Yeah, we've started, I've started trying weekly, like on the weekend, stack up that coming week's meetings on the homepage so people just see them right there. So,
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's often hard to actually find something on it. You can say, oh, it's on the webpage, but finding it is hard. And the only
Yeah.
thing people really see is usually the homepage. Unless you give them a direct link to something. So I think it's
Great.
good you're doing that. Okay, I would like to move on to some of the comp plan discussion. And Charles, I know you have to go. So
I gotta bounce. Sorry, I had a work thing come up like Monday for tonight that I couldn't really say no to, unfortunately. So appreciate all the discussion tonight. It's been fun talking with everybody. I leave the rest of the agenda in the well-worn and capable hands of my colleagues. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Let me know when the next meeting is. If you throw out a couple dates, that probably either of them will probably work for me. But my weeks are pretty open right now at night. So
okay,
take care, everybody.
bye-bye.
yeah, Charles.
All right. All right. So first up is the reflections on the previous plan, which has a different title, actually, a much better title that Val has given it, but I don't have it in front of me. But it's basically our first appendix. One question was the order of the appendices. So what I chose was to put the reflections part as the first appendix, because it sort of
Mhm.
is evaluation. The second appendix is the process for the review that Val also wrote. The third appendix is the survey, because that was a big piece that fed into the plan. And the fourth appendix is just that vision map that we took from the previous plan. So that's the order of appendices. That can certainly change. But in terms of the reflections piece, the only thing I had was what I wrote you guys earlier. That Val has sort of okayed, but Catherine, I didn't know if you had thoughts on, it was particularly the language of that one section under energy stuff.
Yeah, it looks fine to me.
Okay. Then I sent out the community survey appendix. And so it's any discussion of that. Is the figure clear enough?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing that I think is important is that, and it's always a problem with these kinds of charts, is that all of these things were important.
Right, and I tried to emphasize that in
And
text.
yeah, and so that when you start at 60% as the bottom line, some people will think, oh, transportation's clearly not an issue in Caroline.
Yeah, the alternative was to start at 0, which that made everything
I know.
scrunched, and so I
Yeah.
tried to explain that I was highlighting differences among very important things. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I know, and I understand. I sympathize completely. Maybe you just make the percentages big or bold.
Any comments from you, Catherine?
No,
All right. The vision map is the vision map. I mean, I think we decided we were going to include it. Am I right in remembering that we decided to include that vision map as saying this came from the 2006 plan?
That's what we said,
That's how I remembered it.
right? And where did it appear here?
It's in Appendix D, and
Okay.
in the PDF it'll be the last one, but also I did send it out, I think, maybe not,
Right, no, yeah.
separately. And it's just,
Right.
yeah, I just copied and pasted from the existing, Word document.
Mhm.
I mean, we're including it basically to show the housing focus areas because we mentioned those several times in the plan. The
Right.
vision map obviously goes further than that. It talks about a bunch of different areas for the town.
Mhm.
But there it
It's
is.
good to know the history. I mean, it's a part of the historic development of it.
Okay, so then moving on to the land statement. Now, I call it land statement because I think someone here called it that. One question is, what do we call this thing? Which
I think it's
is
called a land acknowledgement,
land acknowledgement. I like that.
I believe. I can confirm that, but that's what comes to mind. Yeah, I think it's a land acknowledgement.
Mhm.
Awesome. And then today, Tim gave us the small change of what is, I guess, the Indian name for the Cayuga Nation inclusion. I'm certainly fine with how this reads. Does anyone have other comments?
Well, I think that the actual characters of the letters got a little distorted on the PDF.
Okay, I should check that.
Yeah, because
Actually,
it has. Yeah.
oh, I
that-
didn't know. I didn't think I had that yet when I made the PDF. Actually, I didn't
Oh, okay.
include that change probably.
I just confirmed it is called a land acknowledgement.
Great, thank you for that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, we'll have to make sure they came through with, I mean, my email doesn't read them right, but if I paste it into Word, it comes out looking right. So I've
Right.
got it and we'll make sure it comes, therefore it should show up in the PDF properly. So again, I have no objection to the statement as it reads, but I want to, hear other thoughts.
No, it's good.
Okay. Catherine, you're fine with it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's the easy stuff.
I mean, I guess my only question would be, should we acknowledge the individual who provided the language and then note some sort of gratitude to that person?
So I asked him before he had this latest thing, which is from a particular associate of his, he cribbed the other part from the Cornell, I don't know if it's the Native American Studies program or what it is. And I asked him what we should do about crediting that. And he said that he didn't think we needed to. He just substituted the town of Caroline for Cornell University and that was cool. That's what Tim said. I don't know if he's right. So I wouldn't know what to put here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we typically we've been going through this thing too of starting assemblies with some of these statements and stuff,
Right.
and I think that's pretty much the language.
Yep.
Okay, but good question, because I was wondering too. All right. Next is the introduction, forward, whatever, greeting. So for that, like I said, I sent out a slightly revised wording, just what in my mind, helping to clarify that this was something that we were adding a little piece to this thing that we thought was great. And one question, and then Val sort of keyed on this too, was whether we say that we found this, what did I say?
That is perfectly relevant.
Yeah, whether it's perfectly relevant and so compelling, we included it with one addition. We felt it crucial to add the following statement. Is it we felt it important, or as we said, we felt we ought to. So I'm looking for words there. And I think
Not ought to.
yeah, right. So I think Val has
How
this
does it
maybe just
read?
we added. Right. Well, my suggestion reads: we felt it crucial to add the following statement of commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion to the 20. It must be of, not to. So after saying that, given our current climate of racist acts of violence, we felt it crucial to add the following statement of commitment of equity, diversity, and inclusion to the 20-year vision. That was the wording
And you
I threw in.
changed, yeah, and you changed from what to that?
One addition to this vision and of particular importance in our current climate of racist acts of violence is the following statement of commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So you had and of particular importance, which is fine. I can, I just sort of, I don't know, I guess I made it more active. We felt, it crucial or something. So it's a more active statement. But so it's whether we felt it important, because that would be the of particular importance, or we felt it particularly important to add. That would echo the of particular importance previously. Or go back to the original wording. Mainly I was adding the but with one addition part, because I wanted to say this is clearly our addition to it. Sorry, go ahead,
Can you
Catherine.
unmute Mark, please?
Oh, sorry, got it. I'm looking at my paper and I think we're gonna just make you a co-host so you can do that all on your own some. And see if you can unmute yourself now, Mark. You
Sorry,
did.
there was some road noise, so I muted and then I realized I shouldn't have done that. But I just was going to ask you, with that clause, it said, is the current climate of racist acts of violence. It's just an open question. I'm wondering if, I mean, maybe that's true. It's more like we're seeing it more now, and I'm wondering if it's not to our benefit to imply that the current climate is especially bad or whatever. But that just occurred to me, and I just wanted to see what you thought. Certainly, some of the things that are happening now and that we've seen are just unbelievable. But
well, I remember I suggested removing the violence things also, because I think one of the things that is most powerful. Oh, here comes more sports cars down the road. So you'll get to Mark down in a couple of minutes. But anyway, one of the things that's most insidious and keeps appearing, and especially in kind of rural America, is the sort of nonviolent aggressiveness, the things that aren't overt. And I think that we should not ignore that. And that's where I think simply racist acts might be sufficient. But it also has to deal with a whole series of intolerance. And we know that there's going to be a lot more bubbling to the surface over the next year. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I agreed with your additions, what you sent out. I appreciated
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So, but we now have some discussion that, so, I mean, we have, given our current climate of racist acts of violence, it could be our current climate of racist acts and intolerance.
Right.
Crucial. How do people feel about that? I think the violence is sort of important, but I admit it's broader than that.
Right. No, I think, well, that sounded better.
Oh, I see. Okay. Charles reminded me that I still have Schickel's name spelled wrong. Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't remember to correct. I will deal with that. Sorry. Back to this. Do we need to work on this language offline? Do we want to finish it here? I'm looking for help.
I think we should just finish it. I think whatever you just said is fine.
Okay, so racist acts and intolerance, I think is what we had.
Sure.
Okay, all right, cool. That means moving on to the, so I did not, originally I titled this on that page forward at the top, which I didn't know was great. I gave no title. Do we want to say introduction? Do we want to say preface? Do we want to say forward? Or as I have it now in the thing you got, nothing at the top of that page?
I don't think it needs anything. I mean, personally, as the one who, just trying to be like greeting, it's like a welcome statement. So I don't know that you need to say like, prepare to be welcomed.
Yeah, welcome. Right. So in the table of contents, should it have an entry? I could call it greeting because right now it has no entry in the table of contents.
I gotcha.
It should.
And what should I call it? It doesn't have to have a title. I can still call it like greeting.
Can you just say welcome?
Welcome. Sure. I'm cool with that.
Right.
Aloha. I don't know. Joking. I don't know.
Yeah. Aloha. Right.
Ciao.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine. That's great. That handles that. Acknowledgements section. I just added as Val had brought up, Mark and Don have helped us with process things, so they're thanked for that. And the co-op extension gave us permission to use maps, so I thank them for that. Are we cool with the acknowledgements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, so the main thing in the environmental protection section is there was some concern about the phrasing where I had talked about a disposable business model. So I came up with some alternate wording. No one else proffered anything. Again, I am totally happy to hear something else. I don't know, I did send that out as an email. I can read it again if you need me to. My new wording and the old wording and new wording, or did you guys look at it and you can just tell me it's okay, or you have an alternate wording?
Can you please read it?
Okay, so what it was some businesses have a disposable business model, building inexpensive, non-durable buildings and quickly abandoning sites. That type of development should be discouraged as is not in accord with the town's values. So Charles in particular was concerned about the disposable language, seemed a little harsh. So the main goal I had is to build in some concept of wanting to justify it an escrow fund is one of my actions. So I have now changed this to poor development can lead to high rates of site abandonment, leaving behind eyesores and remediation burdens for the town, and to non-durable buildings that are expensive for future owners to maintain. Such development should be discouraged as not in accord with the town's values.
Can you just
So-
add poor quality or something, some other,
Yeah.
that needs to be another qualifier
Sure.
rather than like poor, because
Great,
funny.
I'm totally with that because I also had this like, so poor quality. Okay. Other than that, are we okay?
Or, yeah, or is there some other word, I don't know, or some other word that replaces the phrase poor quality? That's not.
Well,
the
you may
word
have more
disposable.
background.
Yeah, I know. That's where they talk about durability, and that's where those things matter. I mean, the thing is that quality is complicated because it could be a material thing, but it could also so often it has to do with essentially leaching toxins and stuff, especially the plastic and bad plastics and really bad jointure materials. But
Like, I'm not sure I really like the phrase poor quality, actually.
Right.
Because it seems like subjective too. It's like, is there some design or architecture phrasing that indicates
I know.
crappy quality? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's or non-sustainable, non-durable, but
Non-sustainable, non-durable. Well, maybe we should just say non-sustainable, non-durable.
I have non-durable buildings, like I said, non-sustainable and non-durable development. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, non-sustainable, I don't know if that's quite the right
Yeah.
sense.
I think
That's-
crappy is more concise.
Well, I was going to suggest crappy, yes.
yeah. Well, I could look.
Yeah. How about I'll put
Or is
poor
there an
quality.
Is it
Go ahead.
durable that's not disposed? That's a different word from disposable. I need a thesaurus.
Yeah. Here's what I'll suggest so we can keep moving along tonight. Val, if you could look at this
Yeah.
and from your architectural background and if you, I mean, I'll put poor quality in as a placeholder for now, but if you have some way of phrasing this, and I'll send you this precise wording in an email so you have it in front of you, that makes sense from an architectural standpoint. I need something that indicates that if they built a damn poor building, it's going to fall down, and the next guy taking it over is going to have a headache. That's the kind of thing, or that it's going to leak crap because they didn't seal their tanks well enough. Anything that says we want things that are well built, designed to last, that can serve multiple, histories of users, generations of users. So that's the concept, and I'll send you this language. And if you can come up with something, I'll be forever grateful.
Well, I'll check with my colleague who does all those kinds of things.
Okay, awesome.
Talk to your people, Val.
Yes.
Talk to your people.
Right.
Have your people talk to my people. All right. And I think so. Val has already. Okay, so in terms of Appendix B, which is the process for review, as I said, I sent it to Chad and Ed, and Chad had one slight suggestion, and I put that out, and then Val came back with, I thought, some good ideas. So the thing right now, though it's not in the document you have, but what we have is the latest version, per Val, is because of a sense of urgency in completing the original plan, it was perhaps slightly disordered with its priorities somewhat ambiguous. The planning board hoped to improve that and set a template for future updates. I am good with that language. Catherine, I assume you are, Val, since you wrote it. Catherine, how about you?
I have a question about it, to be honest, and this is the one
Sure.
that I did really, I mean, I read all of them, but this is the one that stuck out to me. Do we need, what is the purpose of saying that the previous plan was potentially disorganized? Like, can we just take that out? I don't see any reason, I don't think it adds anything.
You know, from what I recall is that actually came from, well, the things that I guess that you, Mark, and Don contributed, because Don did want it, I guess, wanted people to know that there was that it wasn't ideal from the start, the way it was done, and that there were certain kinds of things that had to be done with a very broad strokes because of the urgency in doing it. So I included it only because it seemed to have been important to.
I personally, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I have to say, I personally don't feel super comfortable, like, with it, because it creates the impression that we're like, have some sort of critique of the previous planning board. And I don't really want I don't want to be affiliated with that personally.
I actually had the same reaction or thought, Catherine, and I think this, I would just suggest recrafting it just to say, just leave that part of the construction out and recrafting it to say what this board did.
Yes, not what the previous people didn't do.
Yeah.
Well, but this is right. So this is okay. It could be. This is a reflections on the previous plan, I think, or the directions review process. So this was before us, right? This is the feedback Val's reporting on that the previous planning board to us thought about that plan.
Right. I'm not criticizing Val for
No.
the record, Val. I don't.
No, I got that.
Well,
I got that too.
I'm above that.
Okay.
No, and I'm
Really
sensitive, right? And I'm sensitive to sort of like pissing on the people who really did an awesome job. As we said,
Yeah.
we read this comp plan. We said, well, we don't have to change it, right? Of course, we did change some things, but it's like this held up remarkably well, right? So they did an amazing job, and it does, So I think it was justified by saying sense of urgency. Therefore, they didn't have time to get it maybe fully organized the way they would have liked to. Is
Right.
sort of where I'm getting this.
I just
I'm
don't
okay.
think
That's right.
I'm
That's
okay
why
with deleting it.
I suggested disordered only because we reordered it. And I didn't want to use the word disorganized because that tends to imply that things were a bit chaotic.
Yeah, I'm okay with dropping it.
Yeah.
So
either
couldn't
way.
you say, we reordered it with these goals in mind, blah, something like that?
And we say that right at the very beginning, actually.
Yeah, that's on our. I don't think we have to say it here. I guess I would
Right.
say because that's what we say at the
Okay.
beginning of the intro. The greeting page says that.
this is my welcome.
Yes, in the welcome. Okay, so we'll just strike that, if everyone's cool with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Moving on to that, then I think the PDF that I sent you. So, I got to try. So went through. I tried to make it look kind of uniform, and it's not the formatting I would recommend we use for the final document. But everyone had used so many different fonts and different sizes and different whatevers. So it was just like a plain vanilla run through. And I had some specific questions I had written to you all about that. And the one is this good enough basically as is for what we put out for first public comment, or do you want to format it somewhat differently?
I can't remember what we said. I thought we said that it doesn't have to have the final formatting because who knows what
Right.
the changes are going to be like.
Well, exactly right. What I mean is what I did okay? Is what I'm
Right.
doing.
I think so. Maybe Mark can get a better picture of the town hall tonight with his phone than the cover.
Yeah, I can try if it's done.
Or maybe just your office view here.
What's that?
Maybe just your office view that we get right here. We could do a screenshot.
Yeah. Well, I do think for the final version, we may be looking at some additional graphics and pictures and whatever. I
Right.
partly used that because that's what I had, but also because I was trying to tie it into the previous plan, at least at this stage. But anyway,
Well, Catherine had some nice pictures. from
yes, I'm
before.
hope.
Yeah.
I did.
Yes,
when
you even suggested we use some.
You had put pictures together for I think the rural character and some of the other posters we did.
Right.
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with resolution and other stuff. But at any rate, I just want to know, okay, if you guys hate what I did, then we'll do something different. But if it's okay, we'll just go with that for now. And then, yes, someone's going to do a nice job formatting the final version or the revised version.
I think it's fine. I mean, it's clear and everything fits on the page, so that's okay.
So that's a
Right.
PDF. That's in a regular PDF now.
Yes, I mean, I have the Word versions and I turn them into PDFs with Word in order to then assemble a full PDF because I have to insert the maps.
And then the
That's-
PDF is going to be posted on the website.
The PDF will be posted on the website for people to download. I assume we will print some for people to pick up at the town hall. It is possible, it is a 10 megabyte file, which is not huge these days, but maybe big for some people. So another possibility is, in addition, to have some flash drives with it on at the town hall as well for pickup. That was one thought I had.
That's a good idea. And the only other thing I would say is we just need to make sure it's on the website through like Adobe PDF, so it's ADA compliant.
Okay, so that's a different ball of worms. I mean, we need to do something. I'm not sure we have to make it ADA compliant, and part of that has to do with the figures, and that's a whole nother topic that's on here as the last version. It is unclear, and Mark, I think you have not yet gotten an answer back probably, or even asked whether we legally are obligated to make an ADA compliant version. We would like to.
Yeah, I haven't got an answer on that. The stuff, so I just Googled stuff. There's what is it? It's some 508 provision, or I can't, but that applies to federal facilities. But then what I found online said that that there are other laws that apply to municipalities. But anyway, I will ask Guy and let you know tomorrow. So.
Mark also did find an outfit in town who, again, because we have various things, could help create the compliant version if we need to go there. So Mark's been working on this
Yeah.
also.
And so what she said is if you can provide her an example, or even you could send her the PDF now, and she can tell you, she could advise. It basically was saying, I could advise you on how to do it, or we can do it for you. So I think that's
Yeah.
a great resource.
Actually,
And
my
I thi-
PDF reader here anyway has a button that says make
exactly.
it compliant,
Exactly.
wow.
Right.
and it
But
just
that's
tells you
your
exactly
reader.
what's wrong where. So
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's what you're suggesting doing, right, Catherine?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it just
Yeah.
needs to be run through a program to make
Right.
sure that that's what we're using on the website, and then it's
Right.
Oh, cool.
So that I can do that with the text probably if I just learn a little bit more. But I believe there's an additional layer having to do with tables and figures that I don't think it's going to catch in terms of what to do about the maps.
no,
Um,
it will tell you that if there's a contrast in the thing, and it tells you if there's words on a document, because that's where it gets to be difficult. But you have to describe the document. In other words,
Okay.
the ADA thing doesn't like it when the words are part of the image.
right.
Right. Well, but that becomes a big headache as to how to fix those
Right.
figures.
You have
That's
to-
what I'm
you
saying.
have to
It's not.
narrate- You have to narrate the diagram.
Right. So the text itself, I think, is not going to be a problem. Right? I mean, right? But
Right.
it's the figures that could potentially be an issue, and I'm not averse to doing something, but we might
Right.
need to hire someone to write the descriptions or whatever it is that it takes. I will make a first pass at that, and if I get stalled out because of time, I'm going to pass it on to one of you guys at doing the PDF converter thing or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Last question I had was in terms.
Bill, I guess my only comment is just to save you time. I don't know that this is really something you have to do, because it's going to be going to the town, whatever the town board's software and web. I don't know a thing about it, but I mean, like, it doesn't seem like you need to reinvent the wheel here.
Okay, well, I mean, at this point, it's still our document, but I could also hand it off to Jesse and say, do something with this to make it compliant. Is that fine, Mark?
I think so. Yep. Well, and
Okay.
you know, I mean, if we can do it here, we will, and if we can't, we'll have Anna help us with it, whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine, for that.
You're welcome. I'm just trying to
I-
think. I don't think
No, it must be the bags under my eyes, you know, you're right. So last question I had was the table of contents. So, you know, I sort of arbitrarily decided major headings and inside each section, which for Catherine's was every heading she had. And you had some very long headings, by the way.
yeah, I do that.
Yeah, for the stuff I wrote, I mean, there's a zillion subheadings under environmental protection and also under natural resources, but that I didn't think it was really necessary to list each one. So I wasn't sure. So I just left it. So the question is the level of detail of the table of contents, which you guys are happy with? Similarly, under the livability section, if someone wants to know where does it talk about housing, it's a little unclear. Or like, where does it talk about X? Because all we have from Charles is where we live, how we live. And it doesn't say that transportation is under this other thing. So I didn't know if we should get more detail in there. And or whether it matters. I mean, it's not that long. People are going to read hopefully the damn thing. You know, how much detail does it need to be in a table of contents?
Right. Well, I just wonder whether, I mean, if you broke down,
I think
if you broke down the snapshot section for the way that you did the others into population, housing, commercial growth, agriculture, that might do it.
So you think adding some subcategories to snapshot of changes section, or what are you suggesting?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because otherwise, yeah, I mean, it would get to be, the livability would get into too many subtopics and topics.
But you'd like to see some for snapshot of changes.
Well, I'm just thinking that in terms of things like housing, because there's a section there and there's a section then again in livability, right?
Right. Catherine, your thoughts?
I guess I keep coming back to this compliance thing. Like, to me, headings, like what, you know, like, what's the purpose of a heading? Why does it need to be there? Like, if it's helping people find things, then I might even just defer this one to whoever's helping us with the compliance to be like, I mean, there just might be things that we're not even thinking about what the value is of a heading. Like, we're not, but yeah, I don't have a strong feeling, like, personally about what the headings should be, but I do have a suspicion that in terms of functionality and accessibility, there are some important pieces that I don't have the knowledge to have an opinion about.
Well, I think in terms of functionality, we do. The question is, you know, do we need more to help people find particular information quickly, or is our document short enough that just for the normal? I mean, I agree that there's a compliance issue and accessibility issue, but in terms of everybody else, does it need more, or is it okay as is? And that's a function issue, like you say, of it's not an index, which has a different function.
To me, I think just the 3 sections are sufficient, personally.
That's where I started personally.
I mean, you've got the introduction, you've got each section. I mean, I guess the other option is to do an index, like, you know, we could try to do some sort of index and then decide what things are. I mean, because that would be the way, if someone really wants to look up TCAT, then they need to go where that's mentioned. I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that, but that's
right. That's
well,
otherwise it's totally subjective.
If they have a PDF, they can just find it in the document.
Yeah.
right.
I agree with that too. I don't have an opinion about it other than accessibility.
Okay. Well, again, I was the same debate. I started with I was imagining doing just the 3 main sections, or 4 main sections, I guess, with snapshot of changes, but then it seemed to make some sense to give a little bit of breakdown, and I don't know. I don't care either.
Well, I think it's good to be able to have the goals called out and the actions.
Okay.
So I think it's fine as it is.
All right, well, we will leave it as in, maybe people will ask us to add more detail or something. We'll see.
Mhm.
All right, any other comments on that semi-formatted draft? All right. So there's going to be a little bit of work to get a little further, particularly to get the compliant version, et cetera. I think we're getting close then to being done. I'm going to say it might take us a couple more weeks to be done, so that we're looking at a release date around 2 weeks from now. That seem reasonable to people?
Mhm.
So we'll see how that actually goes.
And release date like to the town board, you're saying?
No, well, my imagining is what we're doing is, no, not to the town board, I mean to everybody. So there will be a time at which we say, okay, we are now done with the first rough draft. We need to put it out for public review and get comment. So we're gonna put it on the town website. We're gonna have copies available at the town hall, maybe flash drives, and put out an announcement on the listserv, and otherwise tell people the draft is available for review. And I'm thinking that's going to happen around 2 weeks from now. That's what I mean by releasing it to the public, is getting it out there and getting it known about. And I think that that's the earliest I would think we'd really be ready. Because somewhere in there I may be taking a trip, but we'll see. And that related to that is how we publicize the draft, which is the last item on the agenda I think that we have time for tonight. But that's what I meant, Kevin, so I don't know if I answered your question.
Gotcha. Yep.
My thinking, given, unless you guys have rethought, again, normally often in the town, there's been a public information outreach sessions, which works to publicize, a big action. Last meeting, we decided not to do that. Don was suggesting having one. We just talked about the process we used. We can, revisit that decision if you wish. But I think we need to do a good job of letting people know the draft is available. And in addition to the town listserv, which doesn't necessarily reach everybody, but hopefully reaches a lot of people, I was thinking that we'd have a bunch of signs around town again, just like we did for our workshops. But I'm open to other suggestions. We put flyers up at one point. Should we do that again? It's a little different at a time of COVID. I don't want to be going inside buildings all the time, but I'm willing to go up around outside some buildings and tack up, big signs like I had before. So what are your thoughts on how to publicize the fact that the draft is done, that people ought to read it so they can make comment?
Can we do bigger signs? Like, do we have any budget to actually make fewer bigger signs? Like, I would say like one at the post office parking, sidewalk-ish kind of signs, like post office, Birchtondale Community Center / Old Town Hall Food Bank area, or Old Fire Hall rather, Birchton's Market corner of 79 and Birchtondale Road, where all those other signs are. I don't know who owns that land, but clearly someone we could put signs there. And like Speedsville General Store, that kind of thing. I mean, if we could just do that, I feel like that would probably be more effective. Like big signs that just say like, comprehensive plan draft is out, read it, comment.
Right. Finding the town. I'm with you totally. You have already named about twice as many sites as we put stuff up before.
Okay.
Because I was indeed trying to be, I put up, basically I had to build frames. I put up like 3 typically. Like I had one at the community center one time. Another time it was at indeed the store. We have one in front of the town hall, which I think is a good place. That's along Route 79. But I like your other suggestions as well. I definitely want one down in Speedsville. One time I had one at the fire hall. I don't know if we can do the post office. I mean, for the fire hall, I called and asked permission. Similarly for the Speedsville General Store, we could call and ask permission. I don't know if the post office can give us permission. That's a possible, because people go to the post office a lot.
Well, we
so
could
I like
put
all that.
Brad and Debbie's lawn, and it's right across from the post office, so it's all the same, and they would be totally fine with that.
Yeah. So yeah,
I'm going to speak for them and say that they'd probably be fine with that, but I can ask Brad and Deb.
And yes, so the other thing was there's a budget, and here Mark can chime in. I think we have a fair amount of budget left over for the workshops. I was being a little bit, we were spending money, but not trying not to waste a lot of money. This is a big deal, and I think would be worth investing some. Cost is basically a per square foot cost for this kind of copying down at Noman at least. And I don't remember the numbers anymore, but I can look into that. There's also a substrate issue as to how big their substrates are, that kind of like foam board stuff. But it can be bigger. I agree, because the signs we had, in the end, I added some extensions. They just weren't, you really need big letters to be able to read it when you're driving by. It's amazing how big things have to be. Like basically twice in every dimension from what we had before is what it takes. But then putting it up is got to be more sturdy, and it just snowballs. But I agree that would be the goal. All right, how about both you guys think of places where signs ought to go, and
I mean, what is there?
email me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the website is the biggest thing for being able to reach people and get it distributed. Is there any kind of newspaper that goes to everybody?
Penny Saver still does, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I've found a lot of things. I think I actually even saw the first notice of the Dryden comprehensive plan review on that in the Penny Saver.
I mean, the Brookendale newsletter we can ask them to put something in it, but it's a very restricted distribution now. It's down to like
You mean the old mill?
The old mill, right?
Yeah, that's just online now, isn't it?
Well, no, it is. You have to pay for your mail
right.
subscription, so that cut way. I have no clue. We do the mailing list for it, so it cut way back on the number of addresses in the mailing list. But a lot of people are accessing it online, so I think that is another venue. I think the Penny Saver is a good idea as well. We also face the issue that once we schedule a public hearing, which we better do pretty soon, but not tonight because we don't have Charles, we need a certain amount of public notice for that as well. And that has to go out. I can't remember, I think it's supposed to be a newspaper, but Mark might know these days how we're supposed to publicize a public hearing. What do we do for a public hearing, Mark?
You should publish it in the town newspaper, which is the Ithaca Journal. We can submit that at the Jesse can submit that. So.
Okay.
Is there any not on any of these things, but I would imagine, are there social media? Are there any like Brookendale Facebook groups or anything like that?
I think there is. I think there's a Brookendale group.
There's a Brookendale listserv different from the town listserv, I think, because Charles is on that, but I'm not. I don't know if there's a Facebook group. Maybe there is. Good idea.
I don't know.
So that would be a place to post. I mean, wherever people were getting all of this information about the swimming hole.
Yeah, right.
Use it for good and not for evil. Tap into that. Maybe Kate would know.
What I will, this is now hitting me as you're talking about this thing, is that when we make these signs, it would probably be good to already have the date of the public hearing set so that it can also be on those signs to publicize that.
For sure.
So at our next meeting, I think we'll have to determine that, because I am kind of blitzed and we don't have our full crew here. Just to give, so what do you guys think? I'm thinking, given that we don't have other public outreach and this is now like a 50-ish page document, I would like to give people at least 3 weeks to sit with this document before the public hearing. How do people feel about that time frame? More or less?
It's fine with me. The practice in reality, almost everybody does things in the last minute.
Right, but I want to give people enough last minutes, like, oh, I'm going on vacation this week.
Right.
So but Catherine, your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think people who are going to read it are going to read it promptly, and everyone else is not going to read it at all, and it's not going to make any difference. So I guess people who are interested in reading it are not going to take 3 weeks to read it. But for the sake of course, giving people time, I think it's a very fair amount of time.
And yes, you get to part of what I don't want to do is to either really be or give the appearance of sort of like rushing or ramrodding something, right? This is a big document. It makes some pretty significant suggestions to the town. So I'd like to make sure that it's a fair and open process.
No, I think that's totally fair.
Okay.
So
Another-
if we have our next meeting in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then have that maybe 3 weeks afterward, or 4, it would at
Yeah.
least put it in the first couple of weeks of September, which is probably a good thing. I mean, because school may have started.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
And before everyone's gotten sick, you mean, after schools
Yeah, right,
reopen?
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, let's look at a date for meeting again. I mean, 2 weeks
Are you
from
saying-
today? Mark?
It- Val, are you projecting that early September would be when the public hearing is?
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, if we do our meeting on the 20th of August, the next meeting, and then set it for 3 weeks after that, that would be the 10th of September. Otherwise, it would be the 17th.
Right, and it could be any day of that week, doesn't have to be the Thursday, but yes.
Right, it could be,
So-
right, anything.
but somewhere in that
Yeah.
8th, 9th, 10th, 12th of September. in that.
Somewhere by mid-September that we should be done.
Okay. Great.
So
Thanks, Ray.
are you available August 20th, Catherine?
Yeah, what day of the week? Is that a Thursday?
It must be a Thursday, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. I mean, I may be in Chicago, but that Zoom makes it all possible. So, and I may not be.
I'm supposed to be in Mexico.
Uh,
I don't think
that's-
that's happening.
That's
either.
not happening.
I don't
No,
think so.
no. No, I will be trying to make a trip back to see my 99-year-old father. So
Oh, wow.
wow.
do that at some point. It's got to happen here this summer sometime. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were going to adjourn then until August 20th, again, the 6 p.m. time nominally, and that will be, with any luck, our final sign off on this before putting out to the public.
Right.
Wow.
So,
Hey, can I
Great work,
circle
everybody.
back? Can I circle back quickly on one thing?
Yeah.
So
sure.
I wanted to see if you have any thoughts about this committee that we would form to do this homework that we need to get done. Tim has said he'd be willing to chair such a committee, but the other idea is that it would be, it would basically be a subcommittee of the planning board. And so I just wanted to see what you guys thought would work well.
I think it's better to have somebody from the board itself, do on
From the
it.
town.
At least, and even sharing it would be better, because it would make it sort of everything ready for prime time, so that anything that comes out of there, one would know that it has a future or something.
You're saying the town board?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
fine. I somewhat mixed. I mean, in some sense, the planning would normally be pushed down to us and then percolate up to you. But having someone from the planning board chair it sort of elevates the status of
Mhm.
this group. So that is probably to the good in this particular case.
You're saying
Takes-
have someone from the town board chair it? Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Your suggestion is so I'm arguing both ways. Saying, on the one hand, I might normally want it to be a subcommittee off the planning board, but I don't want it to be planning board people because we're all burnt out and I think we need some extra blood and energy. So no
Okay.
matter what, I think you got to reach out into the community for people. I'm
I
really
agree.
hoping that someone, Catherine, from the planning board would love to be on this committee. But having said all that, I think that, yes, a planning board person would sort of, a town board chair would sort of deflect some of the heat from the planning board.
Okay.
And you guys are at least elected and therefore you chose to take the heat.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that there's the advantage to having you guys
Okay.
do it. I agree. In some sense, it subverts the reason for having a planning advisory committee, which would normally be advising you on this. But let's get a special subcommittee to do it,
Yeah.
chaired by a town board member. Totally fine.
Okay. And I
we should
saw a
have-
thumbs up, I think, from Catherine on that. Is that right?
And we've got to have at least one person
Okay.
from the planning board.
And I
that-
think having a subcommittee from a committee of 4 people just doesn't really work for me.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't thinking of it as that, but that it would be, I like you guys were saying, I expect this to be more new volunteers that join it from this energized, community about.
Right. The group is the question was, do they report to the planning board and then the
Mhm.
planning board pushes it up to you, or
Yeah.
or is it gonna be a separate special committee, which is what it sounds like we're all leaning towards now.
Good.
Now I think was your
Okay.
question, because I agree that, yeah, it's not, we can't take two of us to do this. That's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So no matter what, it's gotta be volunteers from the community
Okay.
and with some expertise and advice and help, et cetera, from
Perfect.
planner and us and town board.
Great. Okay.
But
Thank
also,
you.
I
That's
think, like, the other reason to do, I'm agreeing, and also that the planning board, we're still going to have other things to do. Like
Yeah.
when this is also like, I think we need to still
Right.
be able to move forward with like telecommunications, site stuff
exactly.
and
Well,
solar
that's-
and like all that stuff.
Yep.
We need to do.
And that's why I want to get a planner on board to help us, because I mean, this is just that, we need help. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think we have two critical things for us to move on to next after I sleep for a month, but that is the telecommunications strategic plan and the renewable energy siting guidance. I think
Great.
those are two key needs. So it'd be nice if that was going in parallel with this other work.
okay. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And I certainly, I mean, I don't know if it's like volunteer or elected or whatever, however it's going to be, but obviously I will happily put myself on that committee. Or,
Great.
Or seek
Good.
to be nominated for said committee or whatever the process is.
No, that's great.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Great.
Meeting
Okay.
adjourned?
Good
All
job.
Great.
Okay.
Adjourned.
Great.
Thanks,